Hello and welcome to Refiner's Fire, here with young Catholic professionals, where we talk about how God is refining us, especially through our work. My name is Peter Blute. I am the Executive Director here at YCP, and I'm joined today by Chris Cottrell, a longtime YCP member turned supporter turned mentor.
Right.
So Chris, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Peter.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. So
We're happy to have you here in Phoenix.
Yeah, that's right. I was going to say, so we took this show on the road. You most recently have been used to seeing us in Dallas out of the Beatitude studio.
Yep.
But we're here in Phoenix today, still at Lucid Private
Another
Offices,
Lucid.
our sponsor,
Yeah.
where we have our Dallas headquarters, and they have a location here in Atlanta, or in Phoenix, also in Atlanta.
Lucid is a show
Houston.
sponsor for you guys? Or
Sure.
for YCP?
Always.
They are now?
Yeah.
We office out of Lucid up in North Scottsdale, so this is Lucid
we
all
go.
the way around.
Wherever you are,
Yeah,
increasingly.
there is a Lucid. Yeah.
In Sun States. That's what I
Yeah.
was told, Sun States.
Yeah.
So Flip Howard is a former member of our board, and he owns Lucid. So if you're in Atlanta, Phoenix, Houston, Dallas,
yeah.
you should check them out. They do a great job. So we're here in Phoenix tonight. The YCP Phoenix chapter is hosting a speaker series that I'm attending and speaking. So it's good to be here in very hot Phoenix. Very hot Phoenix.
No, it's only 90 today. So you got to break out the Ugg boots and the hoodie, and you're ready for winter weather.
There you go. So Chris, maybe just tell us a little bit about your background first, and how you ended up here in Phoenix.
Yeah. So Phoenix is home for me. I wasn't born here, but my folks moved here when I was about 10. So, I dreamed of being a cowboy when I was a little kid. So moving to Phoenix was like the dream come true. I had the boots and the hat all ready to go. It feels like nothing has changed, and I guess in that way. After college, I moved to the East Coast for about 10 years. Did grad school, deployed, did grad school again, and then finally made it back about a year ago.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, tell us a little bit about your military experience. So you were in intelligence, right?
Yeah.
How did you end up in that space? Did you mean to go into that, or did it sort of find you?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I'd always been interested in the military, but my thought was, if World War III breaks out, then I'll join the military. I graduated in college in 2010, and at that point, it seemed like the war in the Middle East was kind of wrapping up.
Mm-hmm.
It obviously did not wrap up. It kept still a lot of good things going on. And then I went to business school in DC. So spent 2 years in DC and was really struck by some of the military leaders, the younger officers that I met in my program. And you've been to DC plenty of times. It's a very moving experience to go walk around the war memorials. And,
Right.
Walk around the National Mall. And,
Yeah.
Especially the Korean War Memorial. I thought that was particularly moving. And I felt like seeing these other junior officers, or not junior, but young officers.
Is that the black one?
Yeah,
Is that the Korean one?
that's the Vietnam one.
Oh, okay.
On
All right,
the north side.
Yeah.
The Korean one is on the southern side of the
Right,
mall.
it's on the other side.
With the guys, and they're kind of walking through the night.
Yeah.
They've got the raincoats on and everything.
Wow.
But, I was struck, you're in DC and you meet these guys. And I was like, wow, if I don't serve in some way, I'm going to really regret it for the rest of my life. And so felt very moved to join. Went right after business school graduation to basic training and then officer candidate school in Fort Benning in Georgia. And I branched actually right into the Army Reserve as an intel officer. At the time, that was the fastest way to deploy, unless I wanted to go through several years of infantry training to then finally get out and do something. And then in 2021, the best professional timing of my life, or in 2020, excuse me, I deployed over COVID, which is great. So I didn't experience the lockdowns. I didn't go through much of that. Turns out the Iraqis did not really care too much about social distancing, and it was got to support the mission for the Kurdish government in northern Iraq to push back ISIS. So we were helping these local people in their fight against ISIS, and we're a couple years after the big push in 2016 through 2018. But had an incredible experience and met some really cool people there. Yeah.
So what was your faith like at that point?
Yeah, that's a great question. I converted in 2020. So February 2020.
Man, the timing of that is.
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny. So we were planning to go on a pilgrimage to Israel, and I thought, well, this is I want to make this pilgrimage. I'm going to deploy right afterwards. So I moved up my confirmation from typically Easter, after you finish RCA, to February, so I could go through all this stuff and not be worried if it was going to line up with the deployment. So I got to go on the pilgrimage. 9 of my 10 first masses as a Catholic were in the Holy Land. Doesn't get better than that.
Talk about laying a foundation, right?
Yeah, it's just been down. No, I'm just kidding. it was a wonderful experience. Landed in Jerusalem at the end of the trip. And in the hotel we were staying in, it was a group of Chinese tourists who had COVID. So it had like this first contact thing, and made it home before they closed the Tel Aviv airport. So anyway, a very young Catholic at the time. Got on deployment. Most of the chaplains in the army, most of the chaplains in the military are Protestant. So didn't really have access to the Mass. So I would watch, this is during COVID, so where most people were live streaming the Masses.
Right.
And I would watch a Mass out of DC every Sunday. Small world of small worlds. One of the 10 other officers who were on my deployment had just converted to Catholicism, like within 2 weeks of me.
Yeah.
And so then he got moved to my base. So we're 2 doors down. So we would pray together and watch the Mass together. And then got to go when I was in Baghdad to a Mass that was put on by a NATO priest, a French NATO priest. So I didn't know a word of what he was saying in French, but I knew where we were in the Mass. And to pray, and it was just really
that's
a
the
beautiful
beauty of the
experience.
Mass, right?
Yeah.
No matter what language it's in.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, but I actually didn't realize that most of the chaplains in the military service are Protestant.
Yeah,
there are some Catholic priests, obviously, because there's an archdiocese of the military.
There are
military services, I think. But but it was that long before you were able to go to Mass.
Yeah. So where we were in Iraq, there is a Catholic church there and an archbishop, but we weren't able to get off base to go.
Okay.
And then again, funny, small world of small worlds. This Archbishop Verde, actually came to Boston when I was in grad school because another person had gone to the city, met him, and brought him, flew him out to Boston. So he came to my house in Boston. It was like,
wow,
just
colliding of worlds.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So how long were you based there then? In
about a year.
Okay.
Yeah. So a little, about 9-10 months.
Yeah. And then you came back to Phoenix.
From deployment, I went to Boston.
Boston.
2 years in grad school in Boston.
Yeah.
And then moved to Kansas City for a year to start a business, and then moved to Phoenix from there.
Yeah. So that was
been all over the map.
Shepherds.
Yep, that's right.
That you started. So
correct.
So what did that look like going from deployment to then being back stateside? There's a lot of steps here, right?
Yeah.
And then now you're Kansas City, you're starting a business. How were you kind of thinking through and even praying through that discernment process, really trying to understand where God was calling to you with some pretty major changes?
Yeah. I think, we were talking a little bit about discernment before we started recording, and I think it's very easy to expect discernment to look like just a bolt of lightning and here's my answer.
Right.
And I think it's very hard without that to navigate all the options that you have. It's one of the great gifts of the modern world, and also one of the curses is I could have as easily become a firefighter in New York, or an investment banker in New York, or become a scuba dive instructor in the Bahamas, or you become a China expert, and you could just go anything you want in the world is possible. And so I tried to reframe the question to me as not what can I do, but what's the thing that only I can do, or only maybe 3 or 4 other people in the world could do and bring to a certain place. So for me, my heart's always been in Arizona. I've been blessed in a lot of ways, in education or with being in the military and getting life experiences. And I felt like coming back to Arizona was really the one thing that I knew was a thing that was kind of unique to me. Side note, as soon as I met my business partner, we had the same 2 unique things. It was only the 2 of us could potentially do this. But yeah, discerning, I was about to graduate school, and this opportunity came up to start this company, Shepherds. And as you know, but the listeners might not, we do custom made to measure menswear out of Kansas City.
Is this a Shepherd's jacket?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Jacket and shirt, and it's great stuff. And we started with one of the co-founders is the Kansas City Chiefs kicker, Harrison Butker. So
who spoke at our conference
That's
2
right.
years ago.
Spoke at the St. Joseph the Worker Conference. So we were kind of tossing around this other business idea, decided not to do that, and decided to do this. And it was if I don't jump in and help, odds go down significantly that it'll succeed. It wasn't saying anything about me. It was just hard. We were in that place where it'd be hard to find other people to do it, and really felt like one of those unique kind of rare things. I've looked, I think, a lot in my life to find those things that are not the typical path. Going into the military after an MBA is nobody does that.
Yeah.
It's a very bad professional decision unless you are really oriented toward, some bigger version of the good, some bigger version of developing yourself, and care about more than just what's the question for me has not been what's the optimal decision toward like financial goals or my professional career, but like what's the rare decision that says something more about like my character and what would my future sons be proud of me for doing in the future, right? Like that is a different framing, I think.
Wow, that's amazing. So it's the unique thing. It's what would they be proud of me for, and really this like call to service, right?
Yeah.
This call to serve,
Yeah.
right? Which I think people often use that phrase in connection with military service, right? Serving.
Yeah.
But you kind of took that mindset and you're now applying it in different areas.
Yeah.
Really sounds like all areas of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. What's something unique that you can, a life that you can build that other people, it's different than other people's. And maybe that's just my own high tolerance for risk or willingness to kind of, go my own way. But it's been very satisfying so far.
Well, and I think, that aligns so beautifully with God creating us uniquely to serve him and to serve our fellow man in ways that no one else will be able to.
Yeah.
Right. And that's part of that discernment is where is he calling me to serve? And it will be unique. Even if it looks the same, it will be unique because it is you who is serving. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. What is, Jesus says this in one of the Gospels, is the harvest, I'll butcher the exact language, but the harvest is rich, but the laborers are few.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the framing it as, where's the harvest that only I can go get?
Right.
Right. I think that's a very helpful framing to eliminate a lot of the otherwise interesting and attractive possibilities.
Right. Yeah. And the other thing that strikes me about your story, and I hear this often come up in conversations with our YCP members, is sometimes you just have to take action.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Discernment is as much about taking action in some direction as it is about waiting.
Yes.
And even praying and thinking
Yes.
and
100%.
whatever it is, talking to people about ideas.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to act.
Yeah. There's a great cowboy satirist from the 1920s, Will Rogers, and he's got this great quip that I've always thought about. He says, "You can be on the right track, but if you're not moving, you're going to get run over." And I love that. You do have to. You'll get a lot wrong in your early career. We were talking about early career advice too, and I was thinking, I think the biggest piece, yes, 100% take action. You will get things wrong. You'll get, your couple first jobs won't be the ideal fit, but you don't know what your ideal fit looks like.
Yeah.
But the number one thing I would say to get right is trying to find really good leaders, trying to find people who can to work for.
Yeah.
Especially when you're early, because who you work around, it's like your five closest friends.
Sure.
But I think it's your colleagues, your work colleagues, who really set a bar for, you don't know what elite performance looks like until you see someone else do it, right? Mm-hmm. We're primarily mimetic. We have to see somebody do something before we can describe or articulate it. And so finding those really great leaders, I'm sure you can point back in your career and say like, oh, this person and this person like opened up a whole new look of what like an expectation of how performance was or what excellence looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And the other thing that I often want to tell young people is that when you come out of school, you have this superpower available to you, and most of us don't know it at the time. And that superpower is that everyone actually wants you to succeed, and they want to do whatever they can to help you.
Right.
And so you can pretty much ask for anything, go do anything, because you don't know anything, right? And people don't expect you to come bringing value.
Right.
They expect you to be open, curious, super hardworking, be very clear about what you know and don't know, and just really commit to learning, right? And serving with your team. And I just think there's so much opportunity alongside acting for young adults, especially in their early mid-20s, to just go try some things, go ask a lot of questions, go ask people for help. I mean, we have our mentor network at YCP. There's all these Catholic execs that want to deeply serve the next generation. And I think, our faith, our church, our world would be served by more of that curiosity and that drive to just try some things, ask for some help. And see where it leads you, because that's a huge part of the discernment process too, of where God's calling you.
Everyone wants to back a winner, right?
Yeah.
And if you can show up to someone who's more senior than you or has a bigger network or a friend group, whatever, and just work really hard and ask questions, improve yourself, doors open fairly easily if you do put in the work. to open the door.
Yeah. That's been my experience, certainly. So let's talk a little bit about the kind of the network that you've built. So you've started, co-founded with Shepherds, and you're at kind of a growth moment on the horizon here, growing that into multiple brick and mortar stores, and you've put in a lot of that ground level work. You're also investing in companies here in Arizona now. So tell us a little bit about that. You've talked about your love of Arizona, but how did you end up in that world?
So the investing, it's calling it an investment company is we're doing our first one now, so it's that don't want to sound bigger than we we really are yet, but the model is called a search fund. So we basically went out and looked for a business for about a year, and I've been closing this one. We're hoping to close in the next 30 days on. That really was driven by, I mentioned I met my business partner in grad school, and we were the only two guys from Arizona that anybody knew. So they were like, oh, you guys have to meet each other. So we sit down for coffee, and he says, oh, where'd you go to high school? We had both grown up in Phoenix. Where'd you go to high school? And so it's this very small school, you've never heard of it, Veritas. He goes, no way, I went to Veritas. I mean, it's a graduating class. The first graduating class was 25 people.
Wow.
So I'd only gone for 1 year, so we didn't actually overlap there, but we shared this vision to, we both could have gotten jobs in a big PE firm or investment banking or done stuff with bigger salaries, but the point was much more like, how do we come back and serve Phoenix? How do we serve Arizona? How do we build a legacy here? Again, something we're proud of, and that led us to wanting to buy small businesses. So our model is pretty much we find a retiring owner who's looking to exit, but maybe doesn't have a succession plan, and buy the business from them. And then we run it in a much more, Catholic way, right? So a lot of people, when they come in to buy a business, the way they get the profitability is they cut jobs.
Churn it out.
They kind of divorce the business from the community, because then all the, if you sell to a private equity company, and this isn't bashing private equity necessarily, but all the money leaves the community that would have otherwise gone to the local church, the Boys and Girls Club, Knights of Columbus, whatever. And so we want to buy the business and bring in either us to operate it and run it, or bring in a great young guy, especially like a Catholic guy or a veteran, to come run the business.
That's great.
So closing on our first one soon, and then hopefully many more after that.
That's great. So once you close, and can you share what space the
so it's an overhead garage door service.
It's
not closed yet.
Right.
So we're on the final couple weeks here.
So well, I think it's
hopefully I don't watch this back in the year and be like, oh man, that deal didn't.
He committed to it here. You heard it.
You heard it here. That's right. Yeah.
No, but I think
by the grace of God.
I think what's so cool about that is not just the intention, but also it's not a sexy business, right? It's not some big flashy thing. It's a nuts and bolts business. It's something everyone needs, right? But you can do that through the lens of your Catholic faith, and kind of imbue that into the culture of the company and the way you're serving your customers. So what might that look like in terms of, you're hiring someone who is Catholic, right? So they bring that Catholic worldview. But what else do you think would be influenced within the company, assuming you're able to move forward with this deal?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it is viewing your, the staff and the employees as not interchangeable, right?
Inherent dignity.
There's inherent dignity of the worker, exactly. The Wall Street Journal a couple of months ago had a study, or maybe it wasn't the Journal, somebody else had a study out that was when an owner-operator leaves, not for retirement, profitability of the business drops 82%.
Wow.
So there's a huge risk when you turn over a business, and it's very important to us that we contribute a lot, so that these, this business that has people's livelihoods,
all these
people's jobs, families that depend on it. Number one, that we do our jobs really well.
Wow.
The other part of that, I would say, is for a lot of these, in the service industries, it's a lot of younger guys, younger families, and I think, this is, I don't think, the responsibility of every company, but I think we take it very seriously to say there's a lot of development that we can do for these younger guys, to give them training, support, and growing. A lot of the things you do when you're an officer in the military for your enlisted guys, like financial planning and helping them get set up with a 401k, and helping them do savings correctly, and stuff that takes this view of the person as much more than just, did you hit your capacity? Did you hit your metrics? Did you do enough work?
Holistic, right?
There's a real opportunity that we can give to these mostly men in these industries, but these young people to like really, like I was saying earlier, find a really good leader. I'm not saying that we're going to be perfect, but that we would like to be that influence on a lot of these employees and be a really standard for how to take care of people who work for you. And obviously it's where do you direct your money for the business, right?
Yep.
Assuming all this other stuff, what do we do with money from there? I think this is maybe not as common of an opinion, but I think business on its own is kind of an inherent good. It's inherent, the economy is meant to be like the resources of the home, right?
Yeah.
There's a great line from Churchill when he's writing to a mom who's got several of her sons deployed in World War II, and he's saying this is the purpose of everything else we're doing is the home, right? It's the highest good.
Yep.
Is all production, all war efforts, everything they were doing is to protect the families. The family, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really how we see it. And so we'd like to continue reinvesting in more businesses. I don't think either one of us has plans for some lavish lifestyle. It's really we do a lot of good in this life.
Yeah.
With an eye towards the next.
That's amazing because the ripples of that are going to be potentially really profound, right?
Yeah.
Running a business that truly loves the people that both that you're serving, but also who are serving others through the business. And hopefully as you guys grow, you can hire and train up some of our YCP members to come work.
That'd be great.
Yeah, because just continuing to find ways to connect our members with values-aligned companies, great places where their personal, professional, and spiritual life can all be one. Right? So is so important. So if you were to think back, I think you mentioned earlier, advice coming out of college, right? Many of our members are coming right out of school, getting started in their careers. If you think back to Chris in the early days, what advice would you give? What would, if you could do something differently, what would you say to someone who's Catholic, just coming out of school, especially in this economy, this world we're in right now?
Yeah. I mean, we jokingly said before, like, buy Bitcoin. I think there's some truth to that, though. I mean, it's stuff that you'll hold on to for a long time,
right? Yeah,
and stuff that will compound over time. So I would say, treat the people you meet along the way, treat your employers, your colleagues, very well, and know that your reputation, reputation takes a really long time to build, and is absolutely something worth investing in. I would say that the days are long, but the years are really short, and you can accomplish a lot more than you think you can. I think maybe it's just analysis paralysis, or like, what do I, question about what I do. But my approach was to really try to front load my 20s and like work really hard. That doesn't mean give up your fitness. It doesn't mean give up like getting married or young if that's the right thing, or you find your spouse. It doesn't mean like skip on your faith. It doesn't those things are actually really the core. So I'd say build really good habits when you're young, and then just work really, really hard.
The saying that we greatly overestimate what we can do in the short term, and we greatly underestimate what we can do in the long term.
Right.
So it's the small habits, it's the small actions that you take that stack up to so much more. Yeah. I love that. Well, as we just wrap up here, you've got a kind of a crazy story when you were a kid, and this work that you did to actually change state legislation. So maybe we can end with that story, just because you had that service call, that willingness to take risk from such a young age, and it seems like you've carried that for your whole life here.
There's I think the framing that I've heard before is moments of ignition. There are moments in life where you look back and you're like, that really set the bar, or that really showed me what was possible. And I think we talked about that with finding really good leaders. Right. A really good leader can be a moment of ignition that shows you what excellence looks like. But for me, one of the biggest moments of ignition in my life it's called Chris's Law. But I'll give you the backstory first. So when we lived in Texas, 3 of my siblings were molested by a babysitter, which was obviously very tough for the family. And one of the most difficult parts was it was someone we knew from church. We went to church after my sisters had testified in court. This has happened, which when they're that age, it's very tough for them to do. It's a very emotional, traumatic experience for them to go through. So they did that, and we go to church the next Sunday, and the guy, he was 19 or 20, walked in with his parents and family, and I could see my sisters kind of recoil into the pews and like
Wow.
lean close to my dad, and I felt like that was that was an injustice for them to have to sit there and like have to see him and feel like they were in this exposed situation again. So fast forward to Arizona, and I had a homework project that was to write an idea for a law. And so my idea was to give judges the ability to deny bail if the person has been credibly accused. So for, in Arizona, the clause there was proof evident or presumption great. Usually that meant video evidence, DNA evidence, or like a confession, or like this is the third time, or this is, we've got it on video, or the person admitted to it, that a judge could say, okay, you've been, charged, we're going to deny bail while we go through the trial.
While the court proceedings are going.
Yeah, exactly. So met my state senator. He liked the idea. Said, okay, let me see if this is something we can work on. I called him every week for a year. Even when they were out of session. Yeah, even when they were out of session, I was like, hey, are we, we're doing this, right? And so, the next legislative session, he introduced it, made it through the Senate, the House, was signed by the governor. But then a core part of the bill was that it amended the state constitution. So to give judges this ability, you had to change the constitution. So in Arizona, we have this kind of funny thing that actually goes back to when we first became a state. So any amendments to the Constitution go to the public ballot.
Really?
When we first became a state, I haven't done a ton of research into this, so this is what I've heard from, in brief reading and heard from others, but we, sent the state constitution to be ratified by the federal government. The president said, you can't just have the public amend the Constitution, that's crazy. So he sent it back and we said, okay, we won't do that. So they signed it, we became a state, and then immediately we put it back in. So, fast forward to, almost 100 years later in 2002, it went on the ballot and passed with more than 80% of the vote. It was the most
public
approved.
voted it in.
The public voted in.
Wow.
The most popular ballot measure in state history. So yeah, now that's on the books here. And the other clause was we couldn't have, it was illegal for someone who'd been convicted of a sexual crime to live within 440 feet of a school. So basically, you can't live across the street from a school, or you have kids walking by. So I think the big moment, to wrap up that story, the big moment of ignition was going to the election night watch party and looking around and seeing like how little I had to do with it if it wasn't for the presence of the state senator, if it wasn't for the presence of his secretary who like set up all the meetings, and the volunteers who came out and worked on the public ballot part, or people who testified in the committee, and like, but we got to have this shining moment. The results come on, the big TV's there, and it comes up 82%. It was like, wow, you can do a lot, right? There's so much possibility in the world. It made me both feel simultaneously small, but also like there was just unlimited possibility if you just didn't, if you kept making the phone calls and
you can't give up,
effort.
right?
Yeah.
If you really believe in something, you've got to go all in.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so cool. So that was you peaked. That was
that's right.
That's 12.
Yeah, exactly. It's all everything's been downhill.
Since.
Yeah.
What an amazing story.
Yeah.
Chris's
all
law,
by the grace of God. All by the grace of God.
Yeah. Amen. Well, thank you so much for joining for this conversation today, Chris.
Yeah.
And let's keep persevering in faith, being willing to serve our clients and our customers. Keep us posted on the Garage Door Company, and hopefully you can continue to serve Arizona in that way. As this next phase opens up. But we'll make sure the links are available for Shepherds as well, so people can go check out custom-made menswear, really high quality. When you guys have pop-ups at different conferences and cities from time to time, but we have a Kansas City chapter, and you have a brick and mortar place there, so people can check that out. Hopefully coming to some other cities soon.
We're very excited to expand to some other cities around the country, and it's been a great experience so far. And we were at the YCP conference a couple years ago, which was a blast, and Harrison spoke there, which you mentioned, and it's been a great team and a great time, and we're excited to see some growth and track our trajectories as YCP grows too.
Well, that's great. Well, thanks, Chris, and thank you guys for joining us. St. Joseph the Worker, pray for us.
Amen.
We'll see you guys next time.